Have you ever stopped to think about how Roman soldiers, known for their strength and endurance, managed to face such intense battles? Maybe you've also wondered what really kept them standing. What was the hidden secret behind their powerful diet? Something beyond swords and shields. After all, they didn't have access to modern diets, yet they were still examples of resilience. Now imagine discovering the forbidden menu of these men, what Roman soldiers actually ate to stay so strong and prepared. Sounds incredible, doesn't it? And the best part, I'm going to reveal this secret diet in detail, showing how they nourished themselves and how it was crucial in shaping one of the most powerful civilizations in history. If you're looking to understand the nutritional secret that turns soldiers and gladiators into legends, you're in the right place. Let's unveil every part of this forbidden menu and show what kept it hidden for so long. Roman soldiers were always on the move. Imagine for a moment the sound of armor echoing with every step, the weight of shields on their backs, and dust rising from the stone or dirt paths. The sun often beat down on their tired bodies, but none of that made them stop. They marched in perfect lines like a well-oiled machine. But more than willpower, more than sharp weapons or training, something else sustained these warriors. Food. The basis of everything they ate was something simple yet powerful: grains. Wheat, in particular, was the true star. Every day after exhausting journeys, or even before facing a battle, the soldiers gathered to eat. Around campfires in makeshift camps, they would prepare rustic bread, mixing wheat with water and salt. Sometimes they made porridge, thick and warm, which gave them the energy they needed to keep going. Other days they made hard cakes, small discs that they could store in their bags and take on long marches, knowing they'd have something to chew on later. Wheat made up about 60% to 75% of everything they ate. It was so important that without it, the legions couldn't withstand the harsh battle conditions. It was the fuel that nourished not only their bodies, but also their hopes of victory. Have you ever tried to understand the wars that made Rome the greatest empire in the world, but ended up getting lost in so many confusing details? If so, you're not alone. Imagine finally mastering the most important details that shaped Rome, learning the strategies of great generals like Julius Caesar and Scipio Africanus, and understanding how these maneuvers changed the course of history. Knowing how hard it can be to find this information, I've made available my digital book, The 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire, where you'll have access to all this in a clear and direct way. Learn how Rome won impossible battles, discover curiosities you won't find elsewhere, and become an expert in Roman military history. Access the pinned comment and get your copy now, because our units are running out. And continuing to talk about what the Romans ate, like in any story, not everything was perfect. Sometimes in moments of crisis or worse, when they were punished for mistakes, the soldiers were given something they despised: barley. Unlike wheat, barley was seen as an inferior food, something they didn't like to eat. It was the grain given to animals, to horses, not to warriors. But when luck wasn't on their side, barley made its way into the menu. Imagine the despair of a soldier who, after an error made by his unit, saw his precious wheat ration replaced with barley. It was almost like a slap in the face. It wasn't just the different taste or the toughness of the grain that bothered them. It was what barley represented. Eating barley was a sign of failure, that something had gone wrong. It was humiliating, and troop morale would drop. However, there were moments when barley became a necessity. In prolonged sieges or during campaigns in distant territories, when the wheat supplies ran out, the soldiers had to adapt. This is what happened to Caesar's troops when they were trapped in Dyrrhachium. Without wheat, they had to eat barley to survive. And in times of emergency, even what was once despised became essential. But every time wheat returned, the joy in the camp was palpable. Barley could be tolerated in times of crisis, but wheat was the true food of the victors. And with their strength renewed by this simple grain, they continued to march, ready to face the next challenge, the next battle, the next dawn. And so, even in the most difficult situations, the Roman soldiers stood firm. They knew that the road ahead was long, and what awaited them could be either glory or death. But as long as they had wheat to eat, they could continue. Make sure to remember the name and image of this channel so you can always return to this reliable source. Now check if you've already subscribed, because here you will find rigorously researched and presented facts about one of the most influential civilizations in history. What else did these men eat to survive? Imagine the scene: a legion of Roman soldiers marching for days on end, crossing hostile terrains, dense forests, or snow-covered mountains. With every step, the metallic clink of armor, the weight of shields, and the accumulated fatigue seemed to make the path even longer. But for these men, there was no room for weakness. They needed to stay on their feet, strong, ready for whatever came next. And one of the things that kept them moving was a simple but incredibly important food: Bucato. Bucato wasn't a sophisticated food. Far from it. Made from just 3 ingredients, flour, salt, and water, it was actually a hard, dry biscuit, baked twice to ensure it would last for a long time. When the Roman soldiers packed it in their bags before a long campaign, they knew that even without cooking, they would have something to eat for days, weeks, or even months. Now imagine the moment when the soldiers finally took a break. The sun set on the horizon, and the exhaustion was visible on their faces. They sat in small groups around campfires, took off their packs, and pulled out these hard biscuits. There was nothing glamorous about biting into a piece of Bucato. In fact, the first bite was probably tough, the biscuit cracking under the force of the jaw. But it had a purpose. This small disc of flour, salt, and water was the fuel that helped them keep going, even in the harshest conditions. The Roman legions were always on the move, and this meant there wasn't always time or resources to prepare elaborate meals. Bucato, then, became the perfect solution. It didn't spoil easily, it could be transported without issues, and, above all, it provided the energy the soldiers needed to march hundreds of kilometers, day after day. The secret of Bucato's durability lay in its preparation. Baked twice, it became extremely dry, which prevented mold or moisture from spoiling it. For the soldiers, this biscuit was like a loyal companion, always there, ready to be eaten when hunger struck. Of course, the flavor was nothing special, a bit salty, a bit bland. But for those men, the taste didn't matter. Bucato kept them on their feet, and that was all they needed. There was even a sort of ritual around Bucato. Some soldiers would soak the biscuit in water or wine to soften it and make it easier to chew. Others ate it dry, chewing slowly while watching the horizon, thinking about the next battles they would face. And on certain occasions, if the army was camped for a longer time, Bucato could even be broken into pieces and mixed with other foods, like vegetables or meat, to create a more substantial dish. These hard biscuits, which might have seemed insignificant, were a fundamental part of the life of Roman soldiers. Each bite represented their resilience, their ability to keep moving forward no matter how difficult the path. Bucato, with its simplicity and durability, was the perfect reflection of the discipline and strength of these invincible legions. And so, as they chewed Bucato in the silence of the night or while waiting for an imminent battle, the soldiers knew that, even on the hardest days, they had what it took to keep going. But this was just one part of the journey. Tell me in the comments if you already knew about these foods that Roman soldiers ate. And if you know of any other foods they consumed, share them too. What else sustained these tireless men during their long marches across the distant lands of the empire? Meat was essential to the diet of Roman soldiers, especially during long campaigns. Salted pork was one of the most common, as it could be preserved for a long time without spoiling, making it ideal for long marches in harsh conditions. However, soldiers also had other ways of obtaining fresh meat to supplement their meals. One of the methods was hunting. When soldiers marched through forests or wild areas, they took advantage of the opportunity to hunt animals like deer, rabbits, and even wild boars. Hunting wasn't just a way to get food, it also served as a form of exercise and survival skill practice. Hunting wild animals provided fresh meat, something highly valued during the grueling routines of campaigns. Once killed, the animals were cooked over campfires where soldiers gathered for a nutritious meal. In addition to hunting, soldiers also confiscated animals from local populations. This occurred when Roman legions passed through villages, cities, or farms in conquered or enemy territories. Cows, pigs, goats, and other livestock were taken from the communities to feed the army. Confiscating livestock was a common practice, especially when the army needed to sustain itself for long periods. in areas far from their supply routes. This confiscated meat was prepared in various ways: boiled, roasted, or transformed into durable products like sausage or ham. Pork in particular was highly appreciated because its salted meat could be transported over long distances without spoiling, and the animal's fat was also used in other types of food. Thus, both hunting and livestock confiscation were essential methods to ensure that Roman soldiers had enough meat to face the hardships of military campaigns. If you're enjoying this content and believe these stories of Rome are helping you better understand the empire that shaped the world, don't forget to leave your like. This not only helps spread the true history of Rome to more people, but also ensures that YouTube shows you more videos like this. So give it a like and strengthen this journey of historical discoveries. There's a curiosity that few people know. In the heart of the camp, when the moon began to shine in the sky and silence took over the ranks, something special happened before every great battle: the sacrifice ritual. It was a moment of reverence, where every soldier paused to watch the process, knowing it had a power far greater than just an offering to the gods. But before I tell you more, make sure you've subscribed, because here you'll find rigorously researched and presented facts about one of the most influential civilizations in history. The animals chosen for sacrifice, usually oxen, sheep, or pigs, were brought to the altar. They represented the purity and strength that the Roman army sought to attract. The commander or priest would raise a sharp knife and, with precision and care, perform the sacrifice. The blood spilled on the altar was a powerful symbol, a direct connection between men and the gods. That moment was filled with meaning, as it was believed that, with that gesture, the gods would look favorably upon the army, bringing protection and victory. But the sacrifice didn't end there. After the ritual, the meat of the sacrificed animals was carefully divided among the soldiers. It wasn't just any meal. For them, this meat was a divine gift, something that brought strength and courage, something sacred. Around the fires, the soldiers would gather in groups as the meat slowly roasted over the heat of the embers. Imagine the smell rising, mixing with the night air. It was a strong, smoky aroma that made stomachs growl after a day of preparation and waiting. The meat was simple, often seasoned with just salt and cooked directly over the flame. But for those men, each piece they chewed was filled with meaning. It wasn't just a meal to satisfy hunger. It was a way to prepare for what was to come. As they ate, each soldier looked around at the faces of their comrades. The ritual created an invisible bond between them. By eating the meat of the sacrifice, they felt part of something bigger, something that transcended the battlefield. They were united not only as soldiers, but as men who shared the same belief, the same fate. There was a kind of deep silence between bites, a concentration. They knew that by dawn, they would face the enemy, but now they felt ready. The meat wasn't just a source of energy for the body. By participating in the ritual, the soldiers believed they were being spiritually strengthened as well. The sacrificial ritual was like a promise that the gods were with them, that the battle, no matter how difficult, would bring victory. And with that, each piece of meat seemed a bit tastier, each bite a bit more meaningful. When the ritual ended and the fires began to die down, the soldiers lay down, ready for the final rest before the battle. But they knew deep down that they were not alone. The meat they had eaten, the sacrifice they had witnessed, had turned the simple act of eating into something greater. They felt renewed, ready to face their destiny. And don't forget to grab your digital book, 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire. It's very important to get yours right now before the units run out. But this was just one of the rituals that guided the Romans in their preparation for war. What else did these men do to ensure victory? The Roman legions, always on the move, needed food that was practical, long-lasting, and above all, nutritious. This is where legumes, such as beans, lentils, and peas came in. These small grains were incredibly important, not just because they were easy to transport and store, but because they provided the necessary protein to keep the soldiers strong and ready for battle. After all, marching for tens of kilometers in heavy armor or fighting for hours required more than just willpower. The body needed fuel. Legumes were simple to prepare. Imagine the soldiers, after a long day of marching, gathered around small fires. With few resources at hand, They would toss handfuls of beans or lentils into pots of water. They cooked slowly, sometimes for hours, until the legumes were soft and ready to eat. There weren't many seasoning options, but the simplicity of these meals was offset by their importance. Each spoonful of lentils or beans helped maintain the soldiers' energy for the next day's march or battle. Lentils, in particular, were a common choice among the Romans. They were rich in nutrients, easy to carry, and could be mixed with other ingredients like wheat to create more varied and substantial meals. Beans were also highly valued. They could be eaten alone as a main dish or combined with whatever was available, making the diet a bit more diverse, even in difficult conditions. These legumes were true lifesavers, especially when times were tough and fresh meat or other foods were scarce. They ensured that the soldiers had access to a type of protein that helped repair tired muscles and maintain the endurance needed to face long marches. And remember, if you want to know more about Roman history, make sure to grab your digital book, 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire. Head to the pinned comment and get yours because our units are running out. What about fruits? Well, fruits were considered a luxury. They were rarely part of the rations distributed to soldiers, mainly because fresh fruits didn't last long and could spoil easily during long journeys. However, when the soldiers camped near villages or towns, local merchants saw an opportunity for profit. They brought baskets full of figs, dried grapes, apples, and other fruits that could be sold to the soldiers. These fruits were precious because they offered something different, a sweet, refreshing taste packed with nutrients like vitamins, which soldiers could rarely get from other foods. Figs, for example, were highly valued because they could be dried and stored for longer periods. These little packages of sweetness not only satisfied hunger, but also provided a sense of comfort amidst the hardships of the field. Dates and raisins were also common for the same reason: durability. They could be carried in the soldiers' bags over long distances and were always ready for a quick bite when extra energy was needed. Fresh fruits, on the other hand, were harder to come by. On rare occasions, when legions camped near fertile lands or markets, soldiers could indulge in fresh apples, pears, or whatever fruits were in season. But these opportunities were rare and often brief. Most soldiers went weeks or even months without seeing fresh fruit. That's why, when fruits were available, they were almost seen as a gift. Sharing a fresh apple or a handful of dried figs with comrades was a gesture of friendship and camaraderie. Besides the taste, fruits brought valuable nutrients like natural sugars and vitamins, helping improve the soldiers' health amidst the harsh conditions of military campaigns. Legumes and fruits, when available, ensured that the Roman soldiers' diet was more balanced. They complemented the grains and meat, offering nutrition that helped maintain strength and stamina during long marches and exhausting battles. Although simple, these foods played a crucial role in the survival and success of the legions. But the story of Roman food doesn't end here. What else sustained these tireless soldiers? Cheese, often overlooked in the stories of the Roman legions, was one of the most practical and essential foods for soldiers during their long journeys. Made from cow, sheep, or goat milk, it was light, easy to transport, and, most importantly, nutritious. Among grains and salted meat, cheese had its guaranteed place as a food that kept them strong and ready for the daily challenges. The great advantage of cheese was its durability. Unlike fresh foods, which spoiled quickly, cheese could be stored for weeks, even months, without refrigeration. This made it perfect for long military campaigns, where soldiers spent days, if not weeks, without access to fresh food. Cheese not only lasted a long time, but it was also easy to divide and transport. Each soldier carried pieces in their bag, knowing they had something to eat when the marches became long and exhausting. Additionally, cheese was extremely practical. It didn't need to be cooked or prepared in a complicated way. A soldier could simply take a piece, bite into it, and move on. This was essential for the legions, who didn't always have time to stop and cook elaborate meals. During a quick break in the march or before sleeping, a piece of cheese was enough to provide the necessary energy. But cheese wasn't just eaten on its own. Often, soldiers would combine it with other available foods. Imagine a group of soldiers gathered around a campfire, mixing pieces of cheese with grains or vegetables. These small additions helped add flavor and variety to their simple meals, making the diet more balanced and a bit tastier, even in difficult conditions. Cheese also had symbolic value. it was associated with rural life and working with animals, something that many soldiers, coming from rural areas of the empire, knew well. For them, eating cheese was like having a piece of home with them, something that reminded them of the farms and fields from where many had come before enlisting in the legions. In some excavations of ancient Roman camps, archaeologists found cheese presses, suggesting that Roman soldiers, on certain occasions, made or prepared their own cheese. This indicates that during longer campaigns, when there wasn't much access to external supplies, they improvised and did what they could to ensure a steady source of this valuable food. Although cheese may not be mentioned as much in great military stories, it was present in the daily life of every Roman soldier. And it wasn't just about practicality. It provided proteins and calcium, helping to keep the soldiers' bones and muscles strong, essential for facing the tough battles that awaited them. Cheese, like other foods, was part of the Roman survival strategy. Although simple, it played an important role, ensuring that the soldiers had the energy and endurance needed to keep fighting and marching. But this wasn't all that sustained these tireless warriors. What else was on the Roman soldiers' menu that helped guarantee their strength in battle? Roman soldiers, relentless in their marches, needed more than just food to maintain energy and health amidst battles and long walks. And while wine was an important part of Roman culture, in the legions, it took on an even more practical function when diluted with water, creating a drink known as pasca. This mixture, although simple, was a true solution to several problems that soldiers faced during their campaigns. Life in the legions was tough. Under the scorching sun or across dry and dusty terrain, thirst was a constant. However, water, which seemed like the obvious solution, was rarely reliable. In those days, water sources weren't treated, and drinking directly from rivers, lakes, or wells could be dangerous. Water was often contaminated, carrying invisible diseases that could take down even the strongest soldiers. That's where pasca came in, turning a problem into a solution. Pasca was made from wine that had gone bad, meaning it had turned sour. This sour wine was diluted with water, which not only improved the taste of the water, but also made it safer to drink. The acid in the wine helped kill bacteria, purifying the water in a simple and effective way. Moreover, the low alcohol content of the wine wasn't enough to intoxicate the soldiers, but it offered a refreshing and light sensation, which was a relief amidst the exhaustion of the marches. But pasca wasn't just a mix of water and wine. Often, soldiers added herbs and spices to improve the flavor and increase the health benefits. Cilantro, for instance, was a common herb added to pasca. It brought freshness and helped with digestion, something essential for men who followed restricted diets and endured exhausting days of movement. Other herbs like thyme and basil could also be included, not just to improve the taste, but for their medicinal properties. Pasca became an almost magical drink for the legions. It was cheap to produce, easy to transport, and most importantly, it was effective. The light acidity also had a refreshing effect, which made the drink highly appreciated in hot and arid regions. It wasn't uncommon to see soldiers carrying their canteens filled with pasca, ready to quench their thirst and replenish their energy during long marches or moments of rest. In addition to being refreshing, pasca had another crucial benefit. It helped prevent stomach problems. For soldiers who were constantly exposed to different foods with little hygiene and questionable water sources, a drink that improved digestion and avoided infections was indispensable. The light acidity of pasca was mild enough not to cause discomfort, but effective enough to keep the soldiers healthy and ready for the demands of the battlefield. Pasca was so common and valuable in the legions that nearly every soldier consumed it. Even though the drink was looked down upon by the Roman elite, who saw it as something inferior, the legionaries knew that pasca was one of the secrets to their survival. On marches that lasted for days, when the heat was relentless and water sources were scarce, the soldiers could rely on this simple mixture to keep their bodies hydrated and strong. And it wasn't just pasca that sustained the legions. Wine, in its pure form, was also part of military life, but it was reserved for calmer moments, like during feasts and celebrations after victories. Wine was always diluted because the Romans believed that drinking pure wine was a sign of excess and loss of control, something unacceptable for a soldier on duty. Thus, diluted wine like Pascha was part of the meals in more stable camps, where the army could afford a bit more comfort. As for pure water, it was always a concern. Choosing the location of the camp involved ensuring that there was a water source nearby. Soldiers were sent to collect water in large skins, leather bags where the water was stored and carried back to the camp. However, this water was rarely consumed without being mixed with wine, for safety reasons. On longer campaigns, when supply routes were interrupted, the need to ensure potable water made Pascha the ideal choice. Life in the Roman legions was full of challenges, and the soldiers' food and hydration were just as important as battle tactics. Pascha, with its simple mix of wine and water, was an example of how the Romans turned a problem into a practical solution. But this was just one of the many ways the legions were kept ready to face the next challenge. Now you know how Roman soldiers stayed strong and ready to face any challenge. Their diet was a true survival strategy. From the grains that formed the base of their meals, to the legumes that provided energy, the meat they hunted or confiscated, to the practical cheese they carried in their bags, and Pascha, the almost magical drink that purified water and kept the soldiers hydrated and strong. Each food had an important role in ensuring that the soldiers had the necessary energy for long marches and battles. Everything was designed to last, be easy to transport, and at the same time provide the nutrients they needed to keep fighting and defending the empire. This shows us that the Roman success went far beyond military tactics. They were masters of organization and logistics, and they knew that without good nutrition, even the strongest soldiers wouldn't last long. And don't forget that you can always access Roman history in an easy and accessible way. Just grab your digital book, 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire. Our units are running out, so head to the pinned comment and get yours now. So if you enjoyed learning all these details about the diet of the Roman legions, stay tuned. There's much more fascinating information about ancient Rome that I'll be sharing here. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss any new content about the fascinating history of Rome, its soldiers, its battles, and all the secrets that turned the empire into a legend. See you in the next video, and thank you for joining me on this journey.